Assalamu alaikum and good evening to our READ community and viewers who are watching us globally. Welcome to the second edition of our collaborative event by READ Pakistan and International Institute of Humanology, Human Evolution Through Books. Ladies and gentlemen, for the viewers who have just joined us, I want to give a small rundown of our previous event. Our first introductory event was launched on 28-29 August, in which we introduced Science of Humanology, which is a new discipline, and its tips and techniques. We invited different humanologists who highlighted the concepts of humanology on a first day with the sub-theme of discovery and understanding. And the second day, we invited different writers who talked about growth and change and how books help us to empower ourselves personally and professionally. Now to discuss different social and educational topics under the umbrella of humanology, we will join every last Saturday of the month. And today we have a topic, violence against women. I will be the moderator of the event. By profession, I'm a mechanical engineer and a social entrepreneur. I joined READ Pakistan in 2018 and founded READ Pakistan Saudi Arab chapter with the other co-founders. Worked 5 years as Image Information Secretary and recently appointed as a Vice President of International Chapters to launch READ Pakistan globally. READ Pakistan was founded in 2012 to promote reading culture. The founder of the organization is Assistant Attorney General of Pakistan, Mr. Farooq Dal, and co-founder Sayyida Fatima Gilani. The vision and mission of the READ Pakistan is to empowering minds through reading, developing knowledge-based society through power of books and reading. READ Pakistan has launched history's largest campaign to establish 100,000 libraries in Pakistan. The International Institute of Humanology develops and supports this new discipline to study and explain human beings. It was founded by Jessica J Lockhart in 2013. She is also an internationally renowned prize-winning speaker and author, and recently joined Pakistan as READ Ambassador from Panama. Ladies and gentlemen, as I just mentioned, that today our theme is violence against women, which is an endemic in every culture and country, causing harm to millions of women and their families. Violence in all its forms can have an impact on a woman's health and well-being throughout the rest of their life, even long after the violence may have ended. It is associated with increased risk of injuries, depression, anxiety disorders, unplanned pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, including HIV, and many other health problems. It has impacts on society as a whole and comes with tremendous costs impacting national budget and overall development. 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. Domestic violence is a global problem that affects 35% of women worldwide. Globally, as many as 38% of murders of women are committed by a male partner. And it has been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, said Dr. Tedros Adhanom, WHO Director General. He said, but unlike COVID-19, violence against women cannot be stopped with a vaccine. We can only fight it with deep-rooted and sustained efforts by governments, communities, and individuals to change harmful attitudes, improve access to opportunities and service for women and girls, and foster healthy and mutually respectful relationships. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have invited some experienced expert writer and humanologists today who are working on individual basis to dilute the intensity of this issue. So now I'm going to invite our first guest speaker of today, and let me share her profile with you guys. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our first guest speaker is Priscilla Chase. Priscilla Chase, she is a certified coach with the aim of helping other people people to live their best life because we learn what we live. She has chosen to work with specific groups, women who have suffered abuse, women dealing with miscarriages, and people who have received a medical diagnosis of a disease that will shorten their lives, as well as their relatives and loved ones. In this talk, she would like to address the issue of compassion for the perpetrators, and even more importantly, for the woman to develop healthy compassion for herself. This she believes is the single most important step in healing the wounds sexual abuse leaves. Welcome, Priscilla. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And the next 15 minutes, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to all of you. Certainly the figures you've presented are noteworthy, and they do deserve our attention. I would like to talk about sexual abuse specifically, and in a sense, my own story as I suffered sexual abuse and how I came to terms with it. And I'm going to do so as the translator that I am, because I think words are powerful and words matter. So I'm going to just mention a few words that will help to give an overview of how I've transited my process of healing and hopefully inspire others to do the same. In my case, I think the first word would be flashbacks. I suffered the abuse when I was a child, and so I dissociated, as so many children and often adults do as well when they're undergoing a very overwhelming event. With the flashbacks, I tried to outrun them, unsuccessfully, clearly, and I had to just stop. I had to just stop because I had no way of stopping the images that were flashing on my brain, which left me no choice but to actually confront and reach a point of acceptance of what had happened to me. I think key to reaching this point of acceptance for me was sharing it with my husband. And so sharing becomes a very important word as well for any and all victims undergoing any kind of violence. You need to share it. You didn't suffer it alone. You cannot heal it alone. And faking it until you make it just does not work. I also tried to make it not true. When I eventually turned to therapy to try to somehow incorporate this, I tried to make it untrue. I kept asking, well, couldn't this be a false memory? And of course it could have been. And I think most victims do at some point ask themselves this question. Could this be a false memory? I kept trying to rewind it and rewrite it. And because somehow I felt shame and blame. And those are another two words that I think are key. Victims will typically suffer shame and blame, whether it's sexual abuse or even physical abuse. Oftentimes the victims will blame themselves. For some reason, it seems to be easier for us to blame ourselves than to blame our perpetrator, oftentimes anyway. We feel like we should have done something differently, or perhaps we provoked this behavior in some way by doing something, by failing to doing something, by saying something, or failing to say something. Whatever the case, it's easier to blame ourselves. And we have to understand that though we suffer shame, and I think that too is a pretty universal response, emotional response by victims of violence of any kind, sexual abuse in particular, we have to understand that really neither the shame nor the blame belong to us. They are not ours. A victim is never to blame. And if we allow ourselves to remain with the shame, we fail to share what has happened to us. We fail to share our experience. And so it's going to be that much harder, if not impossible, to overcome and to kind of find the place for this experience to fit into your life story. And your life story matters, all of it, even the hard and painful parts. So shame and blame, acceptance, coming to actually accept that this did indeed happen. That's a hard one. I struggled with ideas of, what does that say about me? Somehow I felt that the fact that I had been sexually abused was somehow a reflection on me. So again, I think the sharing piece is very important, because in sharing, you get to examine what has happened and hopefully understand that it's not your fault. You are not to blame. Let go of the shame, because the shame has no use whatsoever, and it will, in fact, hold you back from living your best life. So then I think the next step, or the next word I would include, because the steps are not taken in a linear fashion, and people may go back and forth between these different steps, but I think forward is a very important word. Like it or not, life is to be lived, and we have no choice but to move forward. We have to move forward with everything that's happened, but we don't have to carry the baggage of it. And again, that's why this sharing piece needs to be pervasive throughout the whole thing, because there will come a time you will need to do that very deep emotional dive into what happened. I don't recommend a person do it on their own. In fact, I doubt it's even possible. For me, I was so afraid of even examining it that it was like a door that I kept closed, and I was afraid of going too close to it. And it was only when I reached out for therapy and was able to talk about it, that I was able to accept it and begin to move forward. And sharing requires a safe space. So you necessarily need to have people, or at least one person, that can hold that safe, healing space for you. Someone that you can trust, that when you feel that you are going under emotionally, you know that person can hang on to that lifeline and that they will pull you out. And I can all but guarantee that it's not going to be nearly as hard as we think it is. We shy away from it, we push it away, we try to make it go away, we try to squash it. But when we actually confront it and do that deep dive in the presence of someone who can hold that line for you and hold that energy, it's not really as horrible. I spent years trying to run away from it. But actually going into it, it didn't take that long. In fact, I think the neurology of this is basically you can do it within 90 seconds. You can move that emotion through your body. I think there will be more waves. Of course there will. It doesn't take 90 seconds to overcome the trauma of having been sexually abused or having suffered any kind of violence in general. But it will come in waves, and 90 seconds at a time will gradually take you to calmer waters. And I do think that does have to happen in the presence of someone else, because as it is, it will take tremendous courage on your part to be able to really do that deep dive. So it is essential that you have someone there who will hold the line for you. I think another piece, here's another word, forgiveness. And my experience was the forgiveness of perhaps the people who should have protected me. I needed to forgive the people who, when they found out, I felt did not believe me. But most importantly, I needed to forgive myself, because that self-blame does remain, and it has to be dealt with gradually. Forgiving myself and understanding that, giving up my own self-blame, was very helpful and was a turning point. Forgiving others it's about you. It's about giving yourself the freedom from holding on to emotions that perhaps are misplaced, misinformed, or misguided. Be that as it may, forgiveness is another word. And I think for me, of course, the big word is compassion. And I like to always talk about compassion and empathy. They're not the same thing, and perhaps I use my own definitions of them. But for the sake of conversation, I would like to set the record straight for how I understand each word. Empathy is not putting yourself in the place of the other, because I think you run the risk then of putting yourself into their energy, and you do them a disservice. You need to hold your own energy so that you can hold that space for the other person. Compassion is another word that's often mistakenly used, certainly in English and in Spain where I live, as almost like pity, almost feeling pity. But the way I understand compassion is understanding the underlying motivations of what moves a person. When you learn to have compassion for yourself, and you learn to hold compassion for the perpetrator. I don't mean that you condone, you justify, nothing like that. But once I reached a point of being able to hold compassion for my perpetrator, I felt free. And this person was no longer a monster. There was no monster that held power over me anymore. His deeds were monstrous, but I was able to see the person behind those monstrous deeds. That for me was the truly healing piece. And with that, I think I've finished.
Yes, thank you so much, Priscilla. And you're right that victims suffer shame and blame. This is actually the dilemma and most unfortunate thing of our society. And, you know, in Asian families, actually, if any girl is facing any kind of abuse from his immediate family member, then even her mother doesn't support her. As who can be the safest place than mother? But society pressures and rigid cultures, norms don't allow us. So thank you so much, Priscilla. And it's great that you're helping people because being a victim, you can understand the pain, the problems by yourself more than any other person who couldn't experience all this. So thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, moving towards our next guest. And let me share her profile with you guys. Okay, so our second guest speaker is Tasar Isskreah. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Tasar Isskreah. She's mother, teacher, inspirational speaker, translator, volunteer entrepreneur, columnist, writer of autobiographical book, The Gold Scars of My Heart. And definitely we will discuss about her book also. And she's a regular participant in programs in media, and a member at Female Wave of Change. She's doing so many things, multitasker, and we are honored to have her this show. So Tasar, welcome on board.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. So first of all, thank you very much. Now, no need to introduce myself, you just said it. But I would like to say when I start by a mother, because I want every woman, if she's not working, if she's a mother, never look at herself unemployed. Being a mother, taking care of the kid is one of the most complicated and difficult job because it's 24 hours. Even she's sleeping, she will make all the senses working to be able to sense if something is not going on. So as you said, also I wrote a book. I am Syrian, and I have to leave Syria 25 years ago. I left with a big dream, but unfortunately, I could not never come back. And for sure, I carry my home in my heart. Now, writing a book has many reasons. First of all, as a person living here in the Netherlands, I was so shocked with the different culture. It's totally different from Syrian culture. So to show my gratitude, I wrote a book, but it's in English, in Dutch. 𝙃𝙐𝙈𝙆𝙍 from my heart. So it's the golden scars of my heart. And now, by coincidence, the title of my book has to do with the subject of today, because if there is violence, probably we can see scars or invisible scars. If it's physically, you can see it, but if it's not physically, it's more, if it's invisible, so it's more difficult. So here, let me start by saying this. I just came across this saying: violence against women in all its form, as I can't see because of the photos. Yeah, in all its form is a human rights violation. It's not something that any culture, religion, or tradition propagates. So now, as a Syrian and as a Muslim, in our culture, in our Islam, it's not allowed at all. Like someone will take advantage. We are equals, so it's not allowed to have violence, or somebody will accept violence. So I do agree with this. And as I said, I will talk about violence, and that, like, I am Syrian, and before the civil war, we don't really have a lot of violence, but still it does exist. Even it's not a very high percentage. Women will live under pressure, torture, humiliation, and violence for the sake of the kids. So probably the wife from her husband will be suffering, and the violence can be physical, verbal, sexual. But yeah, this is in our society. Because of the culture, women who are victims of violence will never dare to go to police, because they will not easily, get support. As Priscilla said, shame, blame. She will blame herself. She will feel shame because nobody will help her. Her mother, it's a patriarchal society. Her mother will never maybe support her. So women feel ashamed to talk about it. But as I said, it was not that much now, because, during the civil war, which is still going on, the violence is really in all forms. It's a lot. It's violence against the whole country, violence in the country from people inside, from outside, the family, and that thousands of women and girls are raped. And what does it mean if a girl is raped, or there is a big chance they will get pregnant, and there's no father? She doesn't even know who is the father. So probably she will end up killing herself, suicide. In our culture, it's not allowed. It's not something like a single mother can raise a kid alone without knowing who is the father. So that's a lot. That's a lot. And as I said, I carry my country in my heart, my home. So even I'm living here very happily with my boys, but I cannot really live peacefully. I cannot really say I don't care, I don't mind, everything is okay here. No, nothing is okay. I have everything, but still my heart is not okay. Now, talking about my heart, to talk about my book, I told you it's the golden scars of my heart. I just talk shortly about the titles. Come from a short story, which is in Japan. If the bowl is broken, they don't throw it. They just glue it with gold, and it becomes a masterpiece, a piece of art, so beautiful. And this applies also to people. So if we are broken because of pain or whatever, or violence, It doesn't mean I have to be ashamed. No, it's okay. You have to be proud of your scars. You have to say it, shout it, talk about it, and going through this process of breaking. So it means sometimes you have to be broken to be another person and a beautiful version of yourself, a stronger version, a more beautiful, a valuable. So don't let the pain, the scars let you feel you are ugly or just ashamed. Again, the word ashamed. No, and actually I'm like really I'm so different. Like I lived 20 years in Syria. I lived 17 years in Dubai, but I am now in the Netherlands since 5 years. I'm another person. I can't imagine, like, if I'm in Syria, I will so talk and express my feelings or whatever. So here I can talk about everything I want. I can share, I can scream, I can help. I am another person, really. Thank God I am here. So now, what should women do to stop violence? You know, first of all, say no with capital N, capital O. Saying no will not make you a bad person, of mother. You have to love yourself. Stand up for yourself. Have respect for yourself. Never underestimate yourself. You have to be confident. No woman is ugly. Every woman is beautiful. Every woman is strong. And if women just think about, you know, the process of having, giving birth, you know, being pregnant, giving birth, taking care of this, it means she is more stronger than man, and she's very, very, very strong. So she has really to be proud of herself, and she has to draw lines, borders. The man or the other, or, you know, whoever will practice violence must know there is limit, there is borders, and she has to set her own rules. If I say no means no, I don't allow it. So if she is suffering, it's only she must ask for help or say no, and nobody can help her if she will not ask for help. Now, what are the consequences of violence against women? So now we are sure there are violence, and we have women who are suffering from the violence. Yeah, just make it in 4 points. Now, if women are half of the society, and probably they are giving birth and raising the second half, so how do we expect we have a healthy generation? It will affect the children's health and well-being. How we are supposed to have a healthy child if it's raised by a non-healthy mother? So that's one. And the violence against women will lead to serious short or long-term physical and mental health problem. It will affect on productivity and employment. If woman doesn't look okay or doesn't feel okay, she will not go to work. She will skip work, or she will stop going to work. So it will affect the society, and maybe it will lead to attempt suicide. You know, sometimes the word, you know, when you talk in a certain moment to someone, or a lady, she's so fragile, or you do something, maybe she will just now decide to end her life. So we have to be careful with language. Language matter. That's why violence can be verbal, not only physical. You never know, maybe in a certain moment you say something so sweet that you let the person or the woman take decision to change her life. So that's why language really matters. What is my responsibility? Now I'm talking about now, as a woman and as a writer, I want to speak about this problem. It's an important issue, and I want to write about it and educate and help and support any woman who is a victim to violence. Whenever I come across a lady and she's a friend or only acquaintance, and I know she's suffering, I can help her. I can tell her to say no, to leave, don't stay here. If she is married, and then she must know partner are to complete each other, to be one. The man's job is to protect you, to take care of you, not to break you. And if you don't feel this is the situation, so leave. What are you waiting? If you lose your dignity, there is nothing worth living. So you have to stop it, leave. Nothing wrong to be divorced, to be alone. just go by your own until you can go on. Life goes on, will not stop because of this person or this husband or father or brother. You are so strong to stand by your own. So take action. I can help her to connect her to the specialist organization, whatever, even just talking to her. Here in the Netherlands, I have learned talk, sharing. You have to share your problem. I am not the specialist to solve all the problems. So there is someone who can help, like with raising my boys, for instance. I can always ask help and advice. And together we are stronger. So women need to support each other. We have to support the women who needs help, who are the victims of violence. By the way, I told Jessica, I have never, undergone any kind of violence. But as I said, my country, my people in Syria are suffering many kind of violence, and that's why I think, and mostly women. That's why I think it's an honor to take, to be joining this. I think that's the last slide, and we have to say, really, we have to have one strong motto: stop violence against women and break the silence. Not talking about something, as Priscilla said, not talking about something, it's not the solution. You have to dive deep. You have to go to talk about it until it's not that heavy. If you keep it inside, it will be like making you heavy, or it's on your shoulder, like something keep you really like down. So break the silence before it's too late. And if we keep saying this and making such meetings and reach more women, and we never know when someone really in need, and here we are, we reach even one. Like I can't change the whole world, I can't help or rescue the whole world, but if I can rescue one, that's a big achievement for me. Now, thank you for listening, and I would like to share my LinkedIn account if somebody would like to connect, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tasar. Yes, I really like the last slide, break the silence before it's too late. Yes, it is very important to, create the atmosphere where the victims can share their stories to the people who can not only raise their voices, but also because if we will not do this, it will continue generation to generation.
Exactly.
It's very important being a woman, because we nurture the generations actually, and we will be scared and we will be not safe, even in our own houses. How can we do that? Thank you so much. Your conversation was really, really, really touchy, and definitely I hope. And also you said that even me and Jessica will think that if through this session, if any single person will get the courage to share her story, then I think we will get the essence of this edition. Thank you so much. And now I want to invite, because all these issues are related to mankind, humanity. So why this is happening? Why one gender is creating problems for another gender? Why we are facing all these situations in our society? And this is not even in one society. It's a national issue. It's an international issue. Even it's an Asian society or a Western society. It's a common issue. If woman is there, violence is there. So why it is happening? So I think being a humanologist, Jessica can tell us the root causes of all this. What is the main? This is a disease, I guess, right, Jessica? So let me invite today's humanologist, Jessica J Lockhart. Before inviting her, I just want to share a brief introduction with our audience. Jessica is today's third guest speaker. She is a passionate individual, the president of International Institute of Humanology. She's also a Pakistan ambassador from Panama. She is a creator of Humanology and many of its contents, methods, and tools such as optimism coaching, personal essence, absolute forgiveness, or time boxes. She's also an internationally renowned prize-winning speaker and author, and recently she has joined Read Pakistan as Read Ambassador from Panama, and I guess from Switzerland too, in 2 or 3 weeks more. Okay, welcome, Jessica.
Well, thank you so very much, 𝙃𝙐𝙈𝙼. I must say it's a great honor to be here with you all one more month to talk about human evolution through books. And it's a great honor also to share the panel with such distinguished experts as Priscilla and Tasar, who are giving us their own perspective into this very difficult topic, this very heavy subject that we chose to approach today. Because as both speakers said before me, speaking about it is key, is fundamental. Everything that's kept under rugs, everything that's kept hidden and doesn't come out to light is like it doesn't exist. So the first thing we need to do is speak about it. And this is what we're trying to do today in Human Evolution Through Books. I'm going to take a little different stand. I'm going to try and approach the subject from a different perspective, although you will see that I come back to it also at the end of my presentation. So I'm going to be sharing a little set of slides myself. Today's topic is violence against women, and we decided to speak about this for the reason I just mentioned. It is fundamental to give voice and to give light, to give a window where people can see these topics being displayed, spoken about and discussed. Because without this communication, without this conversation, society will never overcome the problem. And when we talk about violence against women, the first thing that I want everybody to wonder about is, okay, so what is violence? And I specifically chose to share the picture of an animal instead of the picture of a human being, because violence exists everywhere. It's part of nature. Nature is extremely violent, isn't it? Look at what's happening with the volcano in Spain. Look at what's happening with the huge floods, hurricanes, earthquakes. Nature is violent. And when I was preparing this presentation, I studied a lot of pages and documents and books trying to get some details, specific details to offer you. And it was very funny because the information that I could obtain was that whenever we talk about human and animal violence, it is usually focused on killing, murdering, or being dangerous in the sense of ending another animal's life. But violence is not just killing, is it? As Priscilla before us said, with reference to her own horrible experiences, and so did Tasar with reference to the war in Syria, violence is much more than killing. It can be very subtle. It can be very invisible and still destructive. So when we study what violence means, and we say, well, violence is everywhere, is pervasive, is in nature. Yes, violence is pervasive, but I would say that there's one type of violence that is very human, and it's the cruelty with which human beings treat other human beings sometimes. Some animals can be seen as cruel too, like for example, the cat that plays with a mouse. Well, scientists have just discovered that that is not cruelty. The cat is not playing with a mouse to make it suffer. It has nothing to do with that. So when we talk about violence and cruelty in humans, we're talking about the actions implemented by a human being in order to cause suffering and pain in another. Many animals and nature in general are very violent without having that desire, without having the ultimate goal of making other animals suffer. No, a tiger, like the one we have on the slide here, attacks an animal violently because it wants to eat. But it doesn't attack the other animal just to make it suffer, does it? Well, I wanted to make that very clear. Why are humans, therefore, so violent? Well, in humanology, this discipline that studies and explains human beings, we also have an explanation for this. We can also give you some insights on why we think that human beings are so violent compared to other animals, compared to nature. And we would like to then answer that question, why are humans so violent, asking another question. Is our violence innate? Is that something we're born with? Are we human beings born violent, cruel, destructive? Well, in humanology, we would say, no, we are not. We learn to be violent. We learn to use violence and cruelty, but we are not born cruel or violent. A lot of people see human beings as violent animals, but the baby that's born in a normal environment rarely turns violent. There are some exceptions that are usually related to mental illnesses, but in most cases, those mental illnesses are also triggered by previous violence. So the cases in which a human being is violent per se are very, very, very limited in humankind. We believe in humanology that most of the violence we see in humans is due to role models in front of those violent people. When you grow up in a violent environment, you usually have two choices: to imitate the model or to be completely different from that model. If that is the only thing you know, if that is the only model you have, if you've never ever had another different view, another different model, it is very, very difficult for you to do something different. It's like if you only ever ate spaghetti and you were never given any meat to eat, you wouldn't even know what to do with a piece of meat. I know this because when I adopted my youngest, my daughter, the first time we went out to eat after leaving the orphanage, we went and sat at a table in a restaurant, and she didn't know what to do with the food in her plate. She just didn't know how to eat it because she'd never been exposed to it. Well, I think that violence and cruelty oftentimes are learned from the models we have in front of us. And the model is not necessarily imitated to the dot. It's not like, okay, because my father hit my mother, I'm going to hit my wife. Because my mother abused my father, I'm going to abuse my wife. No, your violence can have other different displays, other different expressions in your life. But there's another reason why sometimes human beings are so violent, and that is the reason why they are being violent, the object of their violence. Human beings are cruel and violent because they have a reason to be violent or cruel. When we analyze violence in human beings, we see that all violent acts include 4 different elements. We have the abuser, the perpetrator, the bad guy, the bad woman who's abusing others. We have the victim. We have the passerby or the witnesses, those people that see the actions that are being committed, and then we have the actions themselves. In humanology, we usually explain that abusers, as we just said, are oftentimes just imitating previous behaviors they saw. They somehow learn to be abusive. Victims also learn to be victims, to be victimized. When a victim is victimized for the first time, the victim might start thinking, like Priscilla so clearly explained before me, well, maybe it is me that is doing something to deserve this. And that mere thought may lead the person to becoming a victim. Once you're a victim, it's so much easier to maintain, to fossilize that behavior in you, to be victimized over and over again, because at the end of the day, that's what you learned. That's your role model. That's what you believe that you are. Then we have the passerbys or the witnesses, the people that are standing by and that are looking at the abuser abusing the victim. A very clear example of this is what happens in the home. You know, if there is a fight between a father and a son and the mother is just watching, doing nothing, or when we have bullying at school or bullying at work, where the co-workers are just looking and doing nothing, or where the colleagues at school, the peers, are looking and doing nothing. Well, they're also part of the acts of violence. And then, of course, we have the action itself. And the action, as we said before, doesn't necessarily have to be a murderer. It doesn't necessarily have to be, hitting somebody. It can be a little look. It can be a little word. It can be just a little movement that can cause tremendous pain in the other person. But we said a few seconds ago that this is something that we human beings learned. We learned to be violent. And this violence can become a never-ending loop. It can repeat itself over and over and over and over again. How? If we have an example of violence in our life, especially when we're very young, or if that violence is prevalent in our environment, for example, violence against women. If most men in my environment abuse women, I will grow up believing that that is normal. That will become my belief. And because I believe that to be normal, I will imitate that behavior. And if I imitate that behavior and the men in my environment applaud me or somehow reward my behavior, I will continue doing it. So other younger people see my example, start imitating me, and I reward them too. I was talking to my brother the other day, and my brother was telling me about this very interesting research that was carried out by some scientists with monkeys once. They had a whole group of monkeys locked in a room, and they put a high pole with a batch of bananas on top of the pole. At the beginning, the monkeys tried to climb the pole to get the bananas, but every time they tried to climb the pole, a shower of freezing water was opened and they soaked in cold water. Very soon, the monkeys learned to not climb the pole. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part was that whenever one monkey tried to climb the pole, all the other monkeys would stop it, would stop the monkey from climbing the pole because they didn't want to get wet and cold. So they would hit the monkey. They would attack the other monkey so he wouldn't climb the pole. But the experiment didn't finish there. They started taking some of the monkeys in the group out of the room and introducing new monkeys into the room. The new monkeys would see the banana and try and climb the pole. The other monkeys would immediately attack them. No, you don't climb the pole, and would stop the new monkeys. Well, as time went by, all the original monkeys were out of the room, and the room only had new monkeys, monkeys that had never, ever been exposed to the cold, freezing water. And still, they would not climb the pole to get the bananas. And still, they would hit and attack any monkey trying to climb the pole. They didn't know why. They had just learned to imitate the behavior of the other monkeys. And ladies and gentlemen, I think this is part of what happens in our society. I think this is part of what we're seeing among human beings. We learn that behavior, we imitate it, and we get the reward of the whole group. When somebody acts in a violent, aggressive, cruel way, I said before that there is a reward. Well, let me go a little farther down that road, okay? In humanology, we always explain that human beings act for only one of two reasons. We only have one or the other reason to act. No matter what action it is that we're talking about, we only act for one of two reasons. We're either trying to obtain some reward or we're trying to avoid some pain. We understand by reward anything that is positive. It could be a satisfactory something, it could be a physical reward. It could be some pleasure. It could be something that makes us feel proud. Or we could be trying to avoid some pain. And that pain could be being ridiculized in front of everyone, being criticized or ostracized. It could be physical pain. So when the abuser abuses somebody, he's trying to obtain either something positive or to avoid something negative. but the same thing happens to the victim. When the victim behaves a certain way in front of the abuser, the victim is acting like that to obtain some reward, maybe not being attacked, or to avoid some pain, maybe not being insulted. So at the end of the day, all these people, all these human beings that constitute humanity are acting always in order to obtain some reward, to avoid some pain, and based on whatever it is that they learned, on their beliefs, they could be trying to obtain some reward that represents social recognition, maybe sexual pleasure, maybe, you know, some abusers are only sexually aroused when they abuse women, men, children, because we're talking about violence against women, but we should never forget that human beings are not just violent or cruel against women, are they? They're also violent against children, against other human beings. Let's not forget this. So when we talk about why are human beings so generally violent against women, there is a very clear explanation that completely fits in with what we've been saying so far. And that is because oftentimes women are the weakest and therefore the easiest targets. If we consider that the abuser is trying to obtain some pleasure, that pleasure, as we said, could be anything from sexual arousal to feeling important, being considered very strong, very powerful, maybe just being obeyed by somebody else, or, and this is something that happens too, the perpetrator, the abuser is trying to avoid some pain. Yes, abusers can be abusive because they're trying to avoid pain. For example, they might abuse a woman because they don't want to feel like the woman is doubting them or like the woman doesn't admire them, because that might make them feel insecure. They might have a self-esteem problem and they are trying to avoid feeling small, uncertain, insecure. So when people abuse other human beings, they always choose the weakest and the easiest. And in today's world, the weakest and the easiest are usually children and women. Because let's be honest about it, most societies in the world today are male-oriented, and males are not as weak or as easy as women or children are. When a person assaults another person, as we explained now, it is not because they want to hurt that one particular person, and you know, just that one woman in particular, that one boy or girl in particular. It oftentimes is because they want to get their reward. They want to obtain that pleasure or avoid that pain. The proof of that is that most abusers go from one victim to the next. Bullies bully one child. When the child is gone, they bully another child. Domestic violence is repeated over and over and over again because the abuser needs to satisfy that internal need. The abuser needs to get that reward, be it positive or negative. That's why when a victim is abused by an abuser and the victim feels like, why me? It's often not really the you as such, but the need of the abuser. And until all this is clearly explained to victims, to abusers, to standby, to witnesses, then nothing will change. Sometimes even the abuser can feel bad because the abuser sometimes abuses somebody because they need to satisfy that urge they have, that need, and then they feel horrible about it. Once their need is satisfied, once they obtain the reward, the thinking process starts again. Oh my God, why did I do that again? Oh my God, why did I slap my wife again? Oh my God, why did I hurt my child again? They're trying, remember, to satisfy a very basic need. So the cycle needs to be broken. If we consider that a lot of violent people are violent because that's what they learned to do, because that's what their society taught them to do. The cycle needs to be broken. We have to offer those people another alternative. We have to create other role models so they don't need to imitate the only one they have in front. I gave you an example a few minutes ago of a society in which men are all violent against women. Well, if there's a young boy being born into that society and that's the only thing that boy sees, it is very likely that he will be violent too. We have to provide that child with alternative role models of men who respect women, who support women, who see women as equals, who never abuse women or other human beings, because that is what the child will and start believing. That's what will constitute the child's deepest belief. And the same applies to the victim. We have to help victims realize that there is another way, that they can behave another way. If there are other alternatives and we give it to them, they can behave another way. Haven't you heard that victims of abuse oftentimes start other relationships with abusive partners, for example? That is for the same reasons, because they learn that that is what they should do. So right now, in the world we're living in, societies have a huge role to play. And when I talk about societies, I'm not talking about governments. I'm not talking about agencies. I'm not talking about, big NGOs, organizations. I am talking about each member of society. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about the legislator, but the person. I'm talking about the teacher. I'm talking about the father, the mother, the grandfather, the grandmother, the cousin, the brother, the sister, the peer at school. We all can become different role models. The question is, what are you going to do? This will only change when we change the model, when we break that never-ending loop that I was talking about before. When abuse, when violence, when cruelty is not the role, is not the rule, is not the model to be followed, but the exception. Whenever we see somebody being abused, we need to stand up. We need to stop being passive witnesses. We have to go closer to the victim and support the victim while presenting the abuser with a different role model. Only then, when you start doing your job and I start doing my job and my mother does her job and my teacher does his job, only then will society really stop being as violent and as cruel as it is being right now. Tasar was telling us that rape is a weapon in war. Yes, rape against children, both sexes, rape against men, rape against women, violence of all kinds are weapons. Weapons that people use to get whatever it is that they want, pleasure or positive reward, or to avoid the pain they want to avoid. Gang rapes, family rapes, all these things, we all need to stand against this. Only then will society really start changing. And only then will we see that the violence against women, children, and all the weakest parts of society starts diminishing. This is the message I wanted to convey and transmit to you all today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't go over time.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Definitely, it was a wonderful presentation, and definitely before prescribe the medicine, we need to diagnose the problem, the disease, definitely. And you know what is, you said that basically these all issues are based on the gender discrimination or the gender equality, because sometimes our male partners, they are taking advantage of or being the, the strongest gender in a kind of, as you said, that female and children are, they're weak. So I think United Nations have taken a major step regarding this, because women and girls everywhere must have equal rights and opportunity and be able to live free of violence and discriminations. And women equality, as I said earlier, that movement equality and empowerment is one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals presented by the United Nations, but also integral to all the dimensions of, the inclusive and sustainable development. On all these 17 SDG goals are related to the goal 5. This is the agenda by 2030. If we will achieve the targets of goal 5, which says that eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking and sexual and other types of exploitations. So I think we can discuss more or in our upcoming sessions what is goal 5 and how we can achieve these targets, because all these problems are related to gender equality and gender discrimination. And this agenda 20 by 30, the theme of that we should not leave anybody behind. So it was a wonderful discussion by all of our honorable guest speakers. And now we are moving towards the panel discussion. I'm going to ask some questions to our panelists, but if you have any questions, you can mention in our chat box on the Facebook live coverages, or you can send me on my WhatsApp on the Read Pakistan messengers. So we will ask the questions to our all honorable guests. So my first question, the question would be the same, and I will take the answers one by one from all of you. So my first question is that what do you think society should, although you have explained very comprehensively, but overall, what do you think the society should do to help reduce violence in general? Because what we are doing, it's a one step as a society, as individuals, what we can do. But what do you think, what else we should do to reduce the violence in general? So starting from Priscilla.
A very, very big question. Clearly, if we are to undertake any truly effective measure against violence, we have to go into the root causes. And I believe that the root causes are as numerous as they are complex. To try to keep my answer a little more brief, I think I would probably say that one of the best ways, one of the best ways to try to do away with violence in general in society is to understand that, in addition to what Jessica has explained to us so clearly, violence is also born out of basically kind of an inappropriate attempt to control emotions. So emotions are clearly at the heart, with other things, but they are at the heart of violent activity. So number one, I would say absolutely, emotional intelligence is key. We have to teach emotional intelligence to our very youngest members of society. In order to do that, we have to deal with the generation in our societies, I should say in plural, societies that are having children, because it's true, we do live what we learn. Rather, we learn what we live. So when we have parents who can model good emotional hygiene, appropriate emotional responses to difficult emotions, then I think we're doing society as a whole a huge favor in moving away from more violent behaviors. Because at the end of the day, emotion, I like to say, is energy in motion. And until we can move that emotion, until we can talk about it, share it, move it, it will stay trapped inside our physiology, inside our neurology, and feed into that perpetual loop that Jessica spoke to us about. So, long answer, I apologize.
No, it's an amazing answer, I think. Yes, Tasar, what's your point of view?
Yeah, my point of view is when at an early age, when children go to school, just to start by showing films that indicate violence. So let the children give the result that is not allowed. And at that age, girls and boys should be treated equally. So let's educate the children at an early age, even from KG, that first of all, we are equal, and this is something not allowed, and this is how we are supposed to react. So when we are doing this, this generation is supposed to grow up, these children grow up, be adult, and will never learn the lesson. They will never forget the lesson that they have learned, that we are equal, we have something called dignity, humanity, human right, and we have to stand for each other. And if we let the boys at an early school respect and see the girls as and sisters and friends, then they will always take care of them in this concept. They are our sister, our friends, and we are here to protect them and not to violate and hurt them.
Yes, yes. Being a woman, being a mother, being a sister, we need to tell our sons, our brothers how to respect women, and the sexual education should be started on school level. I guess it's high time we should start it as a subject or as a the topic, or we should plan some. Initially, actually, in Asian societies, people are reluctant to discuss this issue, but I guess it's high time to discuss it on a high level and on a school level or college level. Yes, Jessica, what do you think?
Thank you, 𝑽𝑰𝑶𝑳𝑬𝑵. Thank you, Priscilla and Tasar. Well, I think one of the keys we already mentioned before, which is what we're doing today. Speak about it. Speak about it openly in every fora, in every field, in every level. Speak about it at the government level. Speak about it in school. Speak about it at home. Speak about it with your gang of friends. Speak about it. Make it public. I think that societies also need to make a huge fundamental effort at creating greater, I was going to say equality, but no, I don't want to say equality because we're not equals. Let me give you an example. I am a disabled person, okay? I have a physical disability that makes it difficult for me to perform certain physical activities. And well, that just makes me different from people who don't have that particular difference or that particular disability. So what I think that society should try and target is having a much more balanced equilibrium that makes everybody be at the same level, not being equal because we're not equal, but always being able to find ourselves at the same level as everybody else. And I would apply this to everything. I was born in the United States. I grew up in Spain. I was lucky. I was already born into comfort. Did I choose it? No, I happened to be born there. My daughter was born in Kazakhstan, a very underdeveloped country when she was born. Had we not adopted her, her life would have been very difficult indeed, because she had nothing just because she was born in Kazakhstan. We don't choose where we are born, in spite of which that already defines us, and that already opens many avenues to many of us that are completely closed to others. So I think that humanity as a whole should make a real effort to try and have everybody have equal opportunities or similar opportunities adapted to their own situations. So I was born in the US. I grew up in Spain. I already had schooling. I already had food. I already had clothes. My daughter had nothing. I mean, the first time she ever ate a banana was with me when she was 3 years old. She should have received basic schooling, basic health, basic clothes and shelter, just because she was born, just because she was a human being. So until we start really treating everybody in this decent way, until we all recognize and acknowledge the other human being in front of us and treat that person accordingly, we have a long way to go. So I think it's fundamental that we start teaching children, as Tasar was saying, that everybody is first and foremost a human being and should be treated as such, with the utmost respect, with the utmost love and care, because you never know what that person has to give. Do you think Albert Einstein was respected when he was 7 years old? Not necessarily, was he? And then he gave humanity incredible knowledge. We, as a society of human beings, need to learn to respect other human beings right from the cradle, right from the moment they are born. Because just because of being born, they should deserve all our respect. And it doesn't matter whether that person is a man, a woman, a member of any other minority, be it, I don't know, disabled like me, or any other kind of minority. That, I think, is something we should strive to obtain in the world in general. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Mm-hmm. Now we have a question from Tagrit to Jevera and for me. I don't know, I'm writing it to you because Tagrit by mistake sent it direct to me. Can you read it now, Javeria? The question is
the relationship, what is the relationship between Islam belief and violence
the
against
question
women?
for me and for you. So do you want to answer first or shall I start? What do you want?
Excuse me, Tasar, can we first finish the questions we have planned, and then later we have the questions from the audience, so that Javeria can finish her schedule?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jessica, I totally agree with you that basically we have to contribute on a society level, community level, relationship level, and of course the individual level. So we have to work on this on all these levels to get over this issue. And our next question is, like, we are talking about the violence against women, basically. So, okay. So, I mean, only we are discussing any particular violence. I mean, there are different types of violence, right? We are talking about this abuse, because what I consider that violence, harassment at the workplace is also kind of violence. How you consider all these kind of violence, particular in the woman? I'm not talking about only the sexual violence and all that. How you take it? Yes, Priscilla.
Okay. All right. So how to deal with violence against women specifically in all of its multiple forms? Well, another obviously huge question. And I could definitely go down different routes to offer suggestions, but I will try to be brief. So I think number one, I would say in dealing with violence against women in particular. All right, here's a word for you that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with: empowerment. All right, let me explain the hate part, and then I'll get into the love part. So I feel that I hate the word empowerment because it somehow points to power being given from without. I am a firm believer that women, and this is sexist, I can own that. I do believe that in general, overall, women tend to be extremely powerful and very often more powerful than men. So there's my sexist claim for the day. I apologize. Certainly it's not across the board 100% or even close to it. But I think we need to help women to really see their power, to be able to express their power, to stand in their power, and not be afraid of their power. So I think empowerment, the hate part of empowerment for me somehow implies that the woman doesn't already have that power within her. And I have a hard time accepting that premise. Now, on the other hand, it's also true, and herein the love part of empowerment, I think in many societies, most quite likely across the globe, legal devices are needed to protect women, to help them, to discover, understand the power they carry. And oftentimes legal systems, social systems, cultural systems kind of deny that these women in general have their own power. So I think I could go down many avenues of discussion, but I would definitely say, number one, this whole empowerment, power, yes, no, love, hate in all of its facets is an important piece to dealing with violence against women in particular. The other piece that I would just mention briefly, because I think we've already spoken about it, is eliminating the shame for women who suffer abuse of any kind or violence of any kind. That we have to just eliminate the shame. And so I think those are two very important pieces, and I will not monopolize the floor any longer.
Yeah, thank you so much. Tasar, you want to share something on it?
Yeah, now it's good if society can prevent and avoid that the violence against women happen. But if it does happen, then the society must try to approach. So empower and lie, try to educate girls, and also try to have the organization that this organization will reach for the women. So in the case the woman cannot reach, where can I go? Let the organization have a lot of media advertising that they can reach, and the women will come across this and know there is someone is or organization will support me. So that's what the society can do. Don't wait to till the women are victims in the last level. So try to be available, to exist, to do something, to announce that, hey, I am here. If you need help, here I am. And then do your job by empowering, educating, training, just give her whatever it takes to regain confidence and to keep going on, to know it helps. Like, I am not alone. It helps. When I know I'm suffering from something, like I am a mother of diabetic boys, okay, I am not the only parents or mother. It helps if I know many parents have the same suffering. So it helps this woman to know that she's not only one as a victim of violence. So they will be together as the victims, talking, sharing without shame, and then become stronger. When I see many examples similar to me, then I am happy to feel I am not the only one going through, and then we can share from our experience and support each other. So that's why the society will really focus to do something, establish something, so reach for the woman, not the woman will reach for them. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tasar. Yes, Jessica.
Oh, I agree with both, with Tasar and with Priscilla. Yes, Tasar, is true. We need to involve the whole society. It is true that when somebody, be it a woman or be it a child, be it a member of a minority, is being abused or is being assaulted or is being criticized or insulted even, we need to stand for those people, and they need to find support in their environment. Not a difficult kind of support. Like, for example, some of the violence of domestic abuse victims sometimes find it very hard to denounce, because they're laughed at, they're criticized, they're questioned, they're doubted, and it makes it very difficult for them. Imagine children who suffer from abuse of all kinds. How are they going to stand up to adults and raise an accusing finger? They're hurting me. It's very difficult for them. So mechanisms have to be in place, and those mechanisms have to be stronger and much, much, much easier to use. I would also say that it's important to have a certain sense of sisterhood. And when I talk about sisterhood, I'm not talking about only women supporting women. There has to be a sisterhood in which also men are involved, in the sense that women have to be defended and protected whenever they need to be defended and protected by other women and men alike. So that sense has to be created. It's funny because as we're talking, there's a person writing in the Facebook page of Read Pakistan. She's watching our panel today. She's writing, it's very difficult to get out of this situation when you've grown up with the belief that you can put up with all the good and all the bad. Fear paralyzes you. And that's true. Sometimes women or victims in general are paralyzed by fear, but also because their innermost belief tells them that they have to put up with everything, that they need to bear everything, that is their fate, that is their destiny, that is what women are there for. That is what women were made for. And I am sorry to say, but that is rooted in many of the world religions that somehow were interpreted, not because that was said in the religions themselves, but because the words were interpreted to mean, put up with everything, bear everything. That's your job. For centuries, I grew up in Spain. Spain's a Catholic country. And in the Christian religion, we were told that we had to bear all pain because that made us holy and saint. And of course, if you believe that, whenever you're being assaulted, insulted, attacked, criticized, hit, you're going to bear it. You're going to put up with it because that's what you're supposed to do. And that is like, okay, this is hurting me, but I can't speak up against it because I'm going to be criticized by others. So it's two evils that I'm facing here. I think it's fundamental that we question those cultural, religious beliefs in this modern world of ours. I'm not criticizing the religions, okay? I'm not criticizing what they say, but how we interpret what they say. How we turn pain and abuse into something holy. I'm sorry, I can't agree with that, and that's my own personal belief. So I think it's fundamental that we start identifying our beliefs and that we start questioning them as women, as men, as human beings. We need to question whether I want to put up with this, whether I really deserve to be a victim, whether what's happening to me is what I want or not. As an abuser, is this the only thing I can do to get what I want? Do I really need to step on others, to hit, to insult, to abuse, to extract blood, to feel powerful, mighty, and macho man? Really? Is there nothing else I can do to feel good about myself? As standbyers, watching, witnesses, is this what I really wanted to convey and transmit? This has nothing to do with me. They are the abusers. Really? What if you're just watching somebody hitting somebody and your child is behind the door seeing you not taking action? You're the role model there, maybe even more than the abuser himself. So I think it's fundamental that as human beings, we all start questioning our beliefs and taking action. And this applies to women in their victim roles as well. Ladies, no one is born with a stamp here, you're a victim. No one. So don't accept it. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Yes, and definitely this leads us to know the number one tip of what would be the number one, and the prioritized, you can say, the most important tip you want to give the victim of violence, starting from Priscilla, because you have experienced it personally.
Okay, so number one, let's see if I can limit it to one. Probably if I had to say just one, I would go back once again to sharing. Sharing, because when you have someone that you can share with, once you have that safe sacred space where you can share what has happened to you. You can do the deep dive necessary to accept it and to move on from it, so that emotion doesn't get trapped in your neurology, so that you can ride the wave and then ride another one until you do come to those calmer waters. And sharing for anyone who has the possibility, and certainly not everyone does, I do highly recommend therapy of some kind. I believe EMDR in particular is huge. I think it's an extremely effective therapeutic intervention. So I believe there's that. And perception is reality. So change your perception. You'll need help. In the initial moments, you'll need help, but you can change your perception, and your perception is your reality. And know that, number one, you are not alone, as Tasar mentioned previously. And also, you're more resilient than you really know. So that's more than one, but there you have it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, Tasar? Single tip you want to give?
Yeah, now my tip before I give my tip, all that is needed for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I was planning to give a short story. You know, some stories are for a moral. Maybe it did not really happen. So we have a saying, Pharaohs, you know, Pharaohs and Musa in Quran. Pharaoh was asked, who put you in this position to be in power and king? And he said, nobody prevented me. So that's the point. That's the point. Like for the women, she has to speak up. She has to stand for her rights, and she has to prevent men taking use of her. And you know, as we eat, we give food to our body, but as we read, we give food to our mind. And that's why the women must not only study, but to read to get the knowledge and use the knowledge. Knowledge is power if applied. So get the knowledge. It's your weapon to fight, to be someone very important. You don't need anyone. If you are well educated, suppose you get divorced, then you have your knowledge, then you can get a job. You don't have to be dependent. You can be independent, and this is your strength. So that's why don't be afraid. Your fear is your number one enemy. Whenever you are afraid, you will never reach anywhere. So my tip to women, first of all, empower yourself by knowledge, by reading, by studying, by giving this as a weapon, and don't allow anyone to make use of you or violate your rights. And that's it. You have to decide. I don't allow you. Point. Finished. That's it.
Yes, break the silence that you've mentioned in your slide too. Yes, Jessica?
Totally agreed, Tasar. And I would just add to what both experts already said, that we as victims, and I say we because I've also been a victim, I think all women have, all human beings have, in fact. But whenever you're a victim, the first thing you have to do is you have to look for allies. You have to look for people who can support you and help you. Because as Priscilla mentioned, sometimes it is very difficult to do things on your own. You know, sometimes you need a friend. Sometimes you need a therapist or a humanologist in this case. Sometimes you need a mother, an aunt, a grandmother, a father, an uncle, a cousin, a colleague that can give you the support you need to start moving. Fear paralyzes you. That's what the person wrote. And Tasar also mentioned it. And when you're paralyzed by fear, you just don't move. Fear becomes the only thing in your mind. What if he hits me again? What if he does that to me? What if he takes my children away from me? Which is another form of violence. So the what if question, that fear, paralyzes you into inaction. By being in the what if, you're in the future. By being in planning in your head all the possible outcomes to that situation, you're not taking action here now. And that's something I really want to stress out. Ladies, get out of your heads, get out of your insides, get out from your bubble, connect with the world outside, and start acting here now. Every time you get into your what if he sees me, what if he does that, you're not doing anything but living a dream that is in the future, because it's not happening now. Yeah, but he hit me before. Yeah, but he's not hitting you now, because if he was hitting you now, you wouldn't be thinking, what if he does that or he does that? So start first focusing on the present. And second thing that I want to recommend, apart from finding allies, think about the life you want to live. Think about the experience you really want to have in this one life that you have here today. As I said, the what if is in the future. What kind of future do you want to have? The one that you're telling yourself in your head, or a different, beautiful one? If you want a different, beautiful one, what is it that you can do now, this moment, this instant, to take one step closer to that future that you want to live? If you can't take that step alone, as I said, look for allies. But get out of your heads, ladies. Get out of your heads into the real world, connect with other people, and start taking action. I know it sounds difficult, but believe me, whenever you're in the grip of fear, you're in the future. And that future has not yet been written. So if you don't want to write it, start acting now.
Yes. Stop feeling pity for yourself, actually, It's high time to break your silence and, Yes, Priscilla, you want to say something? You raised your virtual hand.
I did do, and it's just because of what the two other speakers have said. Tasar and Jessica have reminded me of something that Dr. Phil says oftentimes. This situation needs a hero, and we can all be heroes. We need to be heroes for ourselves, but when we can't, we need to find other heroes, and we can all be heroes for other people. So that's
wonderful.
Just
that's a wonderful
inspired.
thought. Okay, so now I can take some comments and or questions from audience. Victoria Schroeder mentioned on our Read Pakistan page that it is very difficult to get out of this situation when you have grown up with the belief that you can put up with all the good and bad. Fear paralyzes you. And Umme Kulsoon says, this is a powerful motion. Uruj Khan says, a topic to my heart, because many women want to say many things, because and James joined us. James Skylar Jokha said, this is such an important topic. Thank you to everyone who is participating and who has organized this event. Thank you so much, James. And Albert has raised one question. What is the relationship between Islam belief and violence against women? Okay, Tasar, before I come to you, I want to answer also, because every religion, I don't think so, any religion will allow this, and Islam, particularly the Quran and prophetic practices in the life of all our prophets, clearly mention that relationship between spouses. The Quran says the relationship is based on equality, unconditional love, tenderness, protection, encouragement, peace, kindness, comfort, justice, and mercy. I think I sum it about. And Dr. Jamal Badwai, author of Gender Equity in Islam, indicates that under no circumstances does the Quran and Islam allow to family violence or physical abuse. And in several hadiths, hadiths are basically the sayings by our last prophet, Muhammad, directly discourages the practice of wives beating. He considered the men who beat their wives as lacking in character, as discriminate in their behavior, and is totally unethical. Islam has very clear opinion about that. No violence is allowed in Islam, and we can see when we read the life and the relationships between the spouses and our prophets. We can have so many examples, and we can take examples from their lives. So, Tasar, you want to say something on it?
Yeah, I just have a very short answer that Islam honored women. So Islam has nothing to do with violence against women. Actually, before Islam, some girls were buried alive because it's a shame to have girls. But in Quran, it's mentioned you have to stop killing your girls just because they are girls, daughters. So there is nowhere in Quran and Islam that encouraged or give the right to the man to be violent against the woman or women in general. So I don't think any belief or any religion or Islam, promote or encourage this. It's only human. We do, human men, as we said, maybe because he was raised in a violent house environment, so he will do it. So when we are stepping to speak up and to be heroes, as you said, and talk until we break. You know, we have a saying: if you keep hammering the iron, it will be separated. So keep talking until you get what you want. Don't give up. Don't say Islam says I have to be at home. I have to not answer my man. No, we are equal. We are equal. There is nothing that the man can do and I can't. And there is nothing that and no belief gives the man more right than as a woman I can. We are equal. Islam doesn't differentiate. I don't feel that I am less, whatever, because of I am a woman or nationality. No. I decide what I am able of. And if I want, it's enough to start. Like the 1,000-mile journey start with one single step. So I have to take this step. Nobody will take it for me. I make myself disabled when I refuse to do anything, or saying because of Islam. Islam says women should not go outside without taking permission from her husband. Sorry, but I am the father and the mother. How am I supposed to take my husband permission to take action? I am the one taking responsibility, taking decisions. So I don't wait until what Islam says. I am now in 2021. I keep Islam in my heart, but I follow what my principle says. And my principle says, fight for rights, fight for your kids. And I don't have to look around what religion or what belief supporting my decision or not. As long as I'm not hurting, I'm not doing something wrong, so I'm just proud of myself.
And believe me, abusers has no religion. Believe me.
No.
They have no religion. They have no human values. They don't believe in human rights. So
I agree, and I hope we answered the question.
Yes, Jessica, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with that last statement. Abuse and violence has no religion. We see it in every culture. We see it in every culture. Sorry. And we've seen it for centuries. It's nothing new. No. It's something that's always existed. And we see it everywhere, with every ethnic group, with every religion, with everything. So we cannot condemn any one society. No. And we cannot accuse them of being more violent or more discriminatory than others, because everyone has shown or displayed this type of behavior. So, yeah, I think it's important that we start really talking about human beings being violent or cruel, and not certain religions. We see that, let me use a few examples, okay? We see that women might be violently abused in certain countries, like some Muslim countries, yes, like with some terrorist groups, for example. But what can we say about the Nazis destroying the Jews or the minorities? Or what can we say about the Spaniards destroying complete cultures in America when they colonized America? I mean, come on, we've seen this everywhere in the whole world, in all cultures and groups. So I think we have to stop accusing others of being violent and cruel, and we have to start taking responsibility. Each of us, all of us, like I said during my presentation, society as a whole has to start acting, each of us, each of you, to stop this in every level of society.
Yeah, but Jessica, we are one of this society, so we cannot say society. That's why we take action, we take one initiative on one step, because we belong to this society, and society will work for us only if we work for society.
Yes, and Tasar, you are one member of society, but in your house, you set an example to your kids. When you take your kids to school, you set an example to the other children in the playground. When you talk to your friends, you act in a certain way that is an example. Here today, you're being an example to many, many people all out there. That's exactly what I mean. Precisely. We are, each of us, examples of role models that can be different. No matter where we are, no matter what our religion, no matter what our background. Come on, Javeria is in Saudi Arabia. I am now in Switzerland, although I live in Panama. Priscilla is American, she's living in Spain. You're from Syria, you're in the Netherlands. We're four completely different women.
And
conveying the
it's
same
because
message.
it's really the earth become a small village.
Yes.
Look now, thanks to this technology, how we are meeting online via Zoom, and we are in 5 different continents.
Sometimes I say thanks to COVID, actually.
Sorry?
Sometimes I say thanks to COVID, actually.
Exactly.
Blessing in disguise, you know, we have got connected.
Exactly. Like Tagreer is joining us from Australia.
Yes.
So we are really like a very, I don't know, small community now living together online. This is really thanks to technology.
And I think that's going to somehow have an impact in the world. And talking about violence against women, I think that the internet is a great invention to help us disseminate different role models. Let's use it. Let's start showing people that there's another way to live.
Yeah.
In every aspect. We don't have to behave like we saw in our villages when we were kids, because we have other role models in front of us today that we can learn from. Let's use the internet to spread those role models.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and we can find out the victims like Priscilla who overcome this issue, and now they become a role model for other women. This is a great example, I think. Okay, so far I have finished my questions, and because in every session we ask our guests to recommend some good books related to the topic. So starting from Jessica, some recommendation of books, particularly highlighting this topic.
Okay, because I am the director of the International Institute of Humanology, I will of course recommend humanology books to you. And I know that the other speakers are also going to recommend other types of books. So I would like to recommend 2 of the books in particular that we have in the Institute right now. The first one is The Optimist in You. The Optimist in You is a book that offers you specific tools to not lose your strength, your drive, your optimistic view onto your life. Because if you lose that, and if you start losing your energy, there's no fight left in you. And you can't fight for what is right. You can't fight for yourself. So I think you have to preserve your optimism, and you have to keep on having it very high to continue fighting and to continue surviving and to continue changing the world. So the first one I would like to recommend is The Optimist in You. The second one I would like to recommend is What Story Do You Tell Yourself? You know, we've been saying today that we interpret reality many different ways. And thank you, Father Clock. And there are many different interpretations to one reality. That book is going to teach you how you interpret your own reality, and it's going to tell you exactly how to do it so you can interpret in a way that makes you feel good about yourself and your life. And last but not least, I would like to recommend the last book that we've been reading at the International Humanology Reading Club. We have an international reading club in Spanish, and as we announced in the last Human Evolution Through Books, we are going to launch one in English soon. We will keep you all posted. And the book that we were reading in Spanish is The Man in the Search for Meaning. I think the title in English might be something like that. It's by Viktor Frankl. We were reading it in Spanish. And it's the story of a man who lived in Germany and was a victim of the concentration camps there. The story is hard. but I usually recommend that book not because of the harshness of the story, but because of the hope it can give you. So I would like to recommend these three. If you're a victim, these three books might give you some light and some tools.
Okay. Yes, Priscilla.
Okay, so I wasn't prepared for this question, but throughout our conversation, I have come up with some titles that I would recommend. I think one very powerful book is called The Self-Acceptance Process. It's written by Barbara White, and it's very powerful because self-acceptance, I think, can be especially difficult when you've been a victim of any kind of violence, and especially sexual violence. So I think that's an outstanding one. Excuse me, another recommendation that I would make would be, and this because of the conversation of during today's event, and that is a book by Stephen Hayes. He's outstanding, and it's Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And it has a lot to do with what Jessica was mentioning about what do you want your reality to look like? And it's about even just baby stepping, making your reality today. So the reality you want today. And of course, one of my all-time favorite authors is Brene Brown. So I think I would recommend anything she has written. But I think what I find, the piece that Brene Brown brings to the conversation has to do with courage and vulnerability. And she juxtaposes these two concepts. And the takeaway, as I see it, is that it takes great courage to be vulnerable. And I think we need to all be called to a place of vulnerability in the presence of people who can hold that space for us. So I love Brene Brown. She's one of my all-time favorites. Those would be my three recommendations.
Thank you. I would appreciate if you will mention in a chat box. So later I will, update it with our Facebook link. So they will, people who will review it after the session, they will get the, the titles and the names of the authors. So it will be very beneficial for all of us. Yes, Tasar.
Unfortunately, I have never read a book about violence because I was never a victim. It's never a subject that I'm interested in because I did not really deal directly. But now I would like to read from the books Jessica and Priscilla recommend. So I'm looking forward to.
You can recommend your own book, right?
Yeah, I can recommend my own book, but it's in Dutch. I was thinking to write it in English. So
really?
It's in Dutch.
Okay, I will translate in Urdu also, because in Pakistan, really we need it.
Okay, I will send the manuscript, the text to you. By the way, Jessica, because I told you I am an active member with Female Wave of Change, and I wrote with them a short story in English. So there is an ebook called Stories Matter, where all the writers or women write a short story. So now I think Priscilla, you were saying about writing a book in English. So maybe this book can be also a collective of short stories from women or writers that they would like to have or share of a personal story, or only a story for a moral. So I would like to participate and write a story in English, a short story, to be published with your book. It can be a group of short stories published in one book or in a ebook.
That would be great. Yes, Jessica?
I forgot one book. I'm sorry, I forgot one book. There's one book that I think is very easy to read, and it's even been made into a movie, and it's easy to watch as well. And it's a book that has helped a lot of victims. And that is a book by Louise Hay, one of my favorites as well. And the book is called You Can Heal Your Life. I think that one book, You Can Heal Your Life, is a very easy start for anybody who wants to start healing their lives. And if you have any difficulties reading the book, you can also watch the movie, or you can do both. I didn't want to forget that one.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. So Jessica also mentioned your recommendation in our live streaming chat box, right? Later. Okay, so thank you so much to all our guests and speakers. And overall, I was just moving around, and I found some interesting things about this violence, because there are many myths which are different from the facts. Like, myths is that violence against women is a woman's issue, but the reality and fact says that it is a human right issue that affects everyone. Myth says that violence against women is a private matter or a family issue, but the reality is it is a systematic problem. Women all over the world have similar experiences of violence. Myth says that each partner is equally responsible for the problem, but the reality is abusers are 100% responsible for the abuse. So overall, if I will, summarize the whole conversation and take out the extract, then how we can reduce the women violence, I think, listen to and believe survivors, teach the next generation and learn from them, learn the signs of abuse and how you can help, start a conversation, break the silence, and of course, the last but not least, fund women organizations who are working on this issue. As Tasar is also part of an organization, right, Tasar? Okay, thank you so much. And as I mentioned earlier, when I was introducing the event, that we will have our scheduled event on every last Saturday of the month. So our next event will be on the 30th of October. And the theme of the event is Humanology and Women Empowerment. And we will invite, same like today, humanologists, experts and writers. Let me share the introductory.
I think we chose that topic, Javeria, thinking about Priscilla and keeping Priscilla in mind. Sorry, Priscilla, we used the word empowerment in the title.
Yeah. So our next event will be on 30th of October with the title, topic, Humanology and Women Empowerment, inshallah. And we will be back again with some new guests, or maybe some same guests. We can't say, because 2-hour conversation cannot summarize these huge topics. So thank you so much. If I would ask you a single message, one-liner message, what would be that? Starting from Priscilla.
Okay, hot seat. Be your hero.
Be your hero.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Dream and believe in yourself. And I would like to thank Nabila, who is my best friend, joining us from Dubai, and 𝙃𝙐𝙈𝙉, who is my cousin, joining us from Australia. Thanks for joining us via Zoom.
Yes, I think I should give some time to them also. And starting from Nabila, thank you so much, Nabila, for joining. If you want to say something, most welcome. Okay, I think she's not with us. Tagrid, I was reading all your comments. Yes, Nabila.
Yes, thank you, ladies, for all this great presentation you have made. So many important information you have gave. I would like to say that violence starts from you are a child. As a bully, this is violence. If the mother and the father didn't stop the child, he will continue. If the school doesn't stop him, it will continue. And as Tasar said, and all of you said, that we should educate the children, especially the girls, to be confident in themselves. And I've always dreamed to have karate lessons in schools. I'm not encouraging violence. No, I just want the girl to be confident in herself, and for the boy to think it twice before coming near her. So she will, yeah, she will defend herself. That's all. Yes,
Nice.
maybe this.
Yeah, Nabila, thank you so much. Yeah.
You're
This is
welcome.
another perspective. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, Tagrit Ismail from Australia.
Hey,
Right?
good night from Australia. It's now
Oh.
2:00 in the morning.
Oh,
That was really,
and you're with us. Thank you
I
so much.
really enjoyed this. I would like to thank everybody for all the wonderful things they said. One thing stood out for me was what Jessica said about focusing on the need of the abusers and why they abuse. That takes a lot of pressure from the victim, and the victim will not be asking, why me? What did I do wrong? I think that's quite powerful. Thank you for the books you have recommended, and I would love to join your other talks and other events. That would be wonderful. Thank you all.
If you want to join all our human evolution through books, do send us a message, and we will for sure include you in the mailing list with all the information and details so you can participate every month. But remember, we have an appointment every last Saturday of the month to discuss human beings and human topics.
I'd love to be there. Thank you very much. I'll do so.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Jessica, I think I forgot to take a message from you. Single liner.
Okay, my message to you all is you choose how you want to live your life. You actually do. No matter what happens in your environment, your circumstances are not you. You are still you. So handle your circumstances in a way that makes you proud, that makes you happy, and that makes you feel like they're worth living. So go for it, girls. You can do this.
yes.
Yes, this is my message, the same, that you are the master of your destiny. So, I really love the message, Priscilla, be your hero. So I have mentioned my number also, and Jessica mentioned her email ID. If you want to contact us, please contact. And once again, thank you so much, Tasar, Priscilla, Nabila, Tagrit, and Jessica, because you have invited all these wonderful ladies, lovely ladies. I really thoroughly enjoyed this whole session. And inshallah, looking forward to another session on 30th October, and we will meet again. This is signing out from Read Pakistan, Javeria said. Thank you so much, ladies. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you next month. And let's continue working together. Bye.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.